Hi, I'm Will from Will Surridge Tech, and today we're going to be having a look at controlling your Sonos devices inside Node-Red. We'll look at the palette I recommend, the different nodes, and how to use them. So let's get going. So before we jump into Node-Red, I should say that a lot, if not all of this, is possible using the basic Home Assistant integration. You can join and unjoin groups, you can play and pause music, you can cue and uncue things, you can restore and take a snapshot, which is the current state of the speakers, you can set sleep timers and alarms. Now there isn't a problem with this per se, but I like Node-Red, and that means I like things visual and simple. This means we generally don't want to be faffing around with attributes or states to make things happen. So to make life easier, we're going to use a palette. And this palette in Node-Red gives us access to specific nodes to control specific things in Sonos. And it just makes things clearer and easier to use, I suppose. If we jump into Node-Red, we click Manage Palettes, and then we search for the node-red-contrib-sonos-plus. This gives us the Universal Sonos node and the My Sonos node. Once we've installed this, these two nodes should appear in our sidebar. Honestly, I still get a bit confused as to which node does what, or why they're different, but they are, and they do what they do, I suppose. The first thing to do, of course, is to set them up. Naturally, mine are already set up, but if this is the first time you've installed these nodes, then you need to click on the Add New Sonos Config and then click on the Edit pen. You need to give it a name, and then you press the search button, and it should find your Sonos devices on your network. If it doesn't, then you'll have to add in the serial number here manually, and you can find that in the About My System section of the Sonos app. It's basically your MAC address plus a character at the end. The palette also recommends that you add static IPs. So if you haven't already, give your Sonos speakers static IPs in your router, and then enter these here. It just makes it a bit more reliable. Once you've done that with all your speakers and got them all set up, we can see what they can do. Now if we click on the Universal node first, you can see which commands you can make use of, I suppose. Some are specific to the speaker or the player, some to the group, or some to the whole household. You can get info from the system, for example, which speakers are in a group, or even the state of an LED. Or you can set various system things, such as the bass level, or the crossfade, or, of course, volume. Now, naturally, some of these commands are going to need info in the state, such as the player name or the volume level, for them to actually do anything. As for the My Sonos node, this has significantly fewer commands. It's basically to affect the music rather than the system. The library option is for any local libraries that you might have, such as a NAS or something. The My Sonos section is for any music services you have connected. And for any My Sonos items to work here, then you need to add them or save them into My Sonos. This means you can't just randomly search for a random Spotify playlist. You have to find that playlist and add it to My Sonos in the app for you to then use it using this palette. If you're unsure of what's been added in the app or what the names are of these things, then you can use the get items command, and that will give you a list of everything available. And the title of these is what you want to copy and use as a state when trying to set the cue or whatever you're trying to do with the songs. Now, naturally, you can only stream a station and not music, and you can only cue music and not a station, but you can use the export function to do either. But naturally, whatever you choose to use here, you'll need to match up in the Universal Sonos node. So if you're queuing music, then you need to use the play queue command. Or if you're exporting an item, then you need to use the play export command. So let's put all of this together and make some music, I suppose. We're going to play LBC in the dining room at a set volume. So in the My Sonos node, we're going to use the command export item, and the state is going to be LBC. I've already saved this as a station in the My Sonos app, or the Sonos app under My Sonos. We're going to need to do some things to the player itself. First, we're going to need to leave any groups it might be in. We don't want LBC everywhere, obviously. We can then set the volume to 10. For these nodes, it's out of 100, the volume, so 10 is like 10% volume. We can then clear any cue there may be. Next is the My Sonos node to select the station, and then finally we can play the export. If we join an inject node to the start of the cue, we can see it all in action. Of course, there's so much more we could do with this in automations, rather than just playing music. You could trigger this when you trigger a film scene, where it changes your lights and turns the TV on and everything. And what this section can do is you can turn loudness mode to on, you can turn the sound input to the TV, you can turn the LED off, you can set the volume. Very simple automation here, or addition to your automation, I suppose. So there we go. Full control over your Sonos system inside Node-Red. Make sure you hit that subscribe button below and click the bell icon to find out more about my smart tech and how you can build yourself the ultimate smart home.